As a person living in Ogden City, I count, and I'll count more than ever during the 2020 census. The census determines how more than $675 billion is spent to support my state, my county, and my local programs. If I'm not counted, I'm not being fairly represented in the House of Representatives or in my community. An average of $1,086 per year per person counted in the census is allocated to fund crucial community programs. That totals nearly $11,000 over a 10-year period. If I'm not counted, my family could be affected by a lack of funding in areas of need, such as school lunch programs, early childhood education, Medicare, traffic control, and even emergency response support during a natural disaster. I definitely count. I'm participating in the census because my information is private, my family is safe, and my whereabouts and identity are confidential. The government will only know me as a very important number that'll impact the financial support of our people in our community for the next 10 years.
I count.
I count.
I count.
I count.
I count.
And I count. And I'm participating in the 2020 census. For me, for my family, and for our community.
I don't know about anyone else, but I don't really go talk to my neighbors.
Yeah.
I see some of them at church, and other than that, I'm kind of a little hermit, so it's nice to get out and talk to everyone.
We've been needing to get together, so it was just a perfect opportunity. We just met before we did it, and we just planned out a few things, and it was really easy.
We met with a few other ladies in our community.
Yeah.
We were like, hey, who wants to be in charge or help us out with this? And then Tracy just headed it up.
I've already told a few friends, and I've had a friend who's already applied for it, and they're going to do it in their neighborhood. And so, everybody's super excited. Every time I tell them about the grant, they're like, what? I didn't know about it. And so I recommend everybody to do it.
The food.
Everything, pretty much.
The music. If we have some left over, we'll pay for face painting.
Yeah.
Cotton candy and some prize baskets, right?
Yeah, we're doing a raffle.
Yeah.
And so, everybody has in our area has a stereotype that it's super dangerous and like there are lots of bad things happening, but it's like when you actually see your neighbors and stuff, it's like, oh, there's lots of good people around here. There's lots of people that we can trust and work together on stuff with.
Hopefully we'll do it again next year.
Yeah, and just get to know each other a little bit more. Just more interaction and just to create new friendships and I don't know.
Create unity in our community.
Yeah, I just would recommend that everybody just go get it and do what they can to help their community be closer and help friendships be better, and I just recommend people to apply for it.
Man, look, let me tell you something. I was born back in 1919. People were damn lucky to get some food. You didn't have no money to go to no damn school, music school or no other one. So when I learned how to play music, I learned the best way I could by listening. And the good Lord just blessed me and gave me one of those badass ears that I could play with anything I damn hear.
You know, you don't like to use the word dinosaur, but I mean, literally, Joe is like that. I mean, you're just like, he is a person from another era that doesn't exist anymore. And he's so rare. I mean, Joe came to Ogden in 1945 for a 2-week gig, and he hasn't left. And he's kind of become the musical godfather of 25th Street.
He learned to play by ear. He never learned to read music. So on the bandstand, you know, sometimes we'll say, what key's this in? They tell him, and he'll hear them start out, and, oh, okay, yeah, I got it.
He was there when they invented jazz. I mean, he's 98 years old. He played with Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Ray Charles, Lester Young, Nat King Cole, Coleman Hawkins.
I often talk about jazz being a conversation on the stage. Joe gives you space to have that conversation. So he might start out on his solo, ba da da ba dee da da ba da ba dee da da. You got to have something to say because he expects you to say it.
There's something about the way that Joe plays jazz.
I don't know how to describe it. All I know is I just play. Boy, one thing I tell people, I know the good Lord like jazz, because if he didn't, I couldn't play it like I do.
For him, I think being in the moment is all that he needs to get from music.
All right, I gotta call the next one.
Yeah, call it.
We're gonna listen to some Joe McQueen.
Chimes.
This is the song Joe wrote.
The next band would come in.
More percussion. Remember this one, Joe?
I think that Joe kind of figured out fairly early this relationship between, do you want to be able to blow that horn in a way that entertains people, or do you want to blow this horn in a way that touches people?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, on this date, 72 years ago, I landed in Ogden, Utah. Supposed to stay 2 weeks. It's been a damn long 2 weeks, hasn't it? But I'm glad I stayed, I really am, because things have turned out pretty good for me here, so.
When I think about Joe's impact on Ogden and the larger community, you got to understand the reason why Joe plays his horn the way that he plays it is that it's a community horn. It's a community sound, if that makes sense. He plays with elementary kids. He plays at weddings. He plays at funerals.
I mean, Joe doesn't play music because he wants to be famous. He plays music because he loves jazz.
You can hear everything coming out of that horn. You hear love. You hear passion. You hear the truth.
It's nobody like Joe McQueen. Nobody.
It's an old sweet song. Keep Georgia on my mind.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear.
I love cooking. I've cooked all my life, so it's one of my big things. It's one thing I've always wanted to do in my life, you know. I want to own my own catering business. And, you know, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but this is as close as I can get to it. I'm going to do it, you know. And that came to me.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for attending the meeting. This is the February 18th, 2020 City Council meeting. Please let the record reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Nadolski and Councilmember Lopez. Vice Chair Blair, were you going to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, thank you. Tonight we have a special group of guests here from Troop 461, and I've asked 3 of them if they would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and they have accepted. So we've got Merrick Holcomb, Barrett Allison, and Cooper Barnett. They're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll turn the time over to you 3.
Come on up.
Will the audience please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your troop and what you're doing here tonight?
Today we were going to do the anti-bullying resolution.
Oh.
Apparently that is not up, so we're coming to. We're just gonna see what it's about.
I really appreciate that one. You can always come back when that comes back on the agenda.
They said they've been studying up about government, right?
Yeah.
They had some really tough questions for me earlier, so they've done their job. They really wanted to shake the mayor's hand, and he's not here tonight. So we'll do this deal. You can shake Mark Johnson's hand. He works with the mayor, right? Okay. And then maybe if you come back for the anti-bullying, maybe the mayor will be here that night. And then you'll get to shake his hand that night. So then you'll get them both.
Okay.
All right. But thanks so much for helping us out with the pledge and for being here tonight. And for those that
Bart,
brought you
let's have them say their names.
Okay. Hey, Merrick, do you want to bring your troop up and have everyone introduce themselves? Awesome.
And is your troop 461?
It's 461.
Oh, nice.
And I asked them, they all knew Ben Nadolski. So,
Oh,
yeah.
Ben is unfortunately unable to attend tonight too. I know he's going to miss seeing you.
I'm Cooper Burnett.
Thank you.
I'm Caden McGill. I'm Barrett Allison.
I am Ty Klein.
I'm Michael Goldner. I am Logan Jones. I'm James Stamp. I'm Noah Carrera. I'm Benjamin Hoxer. I'm Merrick Holcomb.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Wait, yeah, so we do apologize that the agenda was amended and that anti-bullying joint resolution, there'll be another day. So we have a request to be on the agenda from Utah Support Advocates for Recovery Awareness, or USARA, and we have a presenter, Trevor Cook and Charlie Salas, that are here to tell us about it. Come on up. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for the opportunity. So I just want to introduce myself.
I don't know if you, yeah, that's up a little.
My name's Trevor. I'm a person in long-term recovery. And the reason why we wanted to be on the agenda was to bring awareness and let everyone know about USARA. We are currently Utah's only recovery community organization. We are a nonprofit. We've been around since 2007, and we recently opened up office in Ogden. Myself and Charlie were certified recovery support specialists, and we work with individuals, help guiding them to their through their recovery and through their mental illness. We also are heavily involved in the community, hosting free community events. We are highly affiliated with Weaver Human Services and local treatment agencies throughout the area. And we are also part of numerous task force in the area, like UCAN and the opioid task force. We just wanted to let you know that we're here, and any way that we can help support you guys, that, you know, we can do it. And then how we do that is we create a case for individuals. It's celebrate, advocate, support, and empower. To break it down really quickly, in Salt Lake, where our main hub is at, like we're heavily involved with Pride Weekend. We host a sober safe zone for individuals. We're in charge of Recovery Day in Salt Lake. This is going to be our 18th year, and numerous other things that we're involved in. We're also heavily involved with the criminal justice system here in the Ogden area. Myself, I'm a part of the drug court team, problem solving court. So we're able to go to visit individuals who are incarcerated, stuff like that. I work with probation officers as well as Charlie. And we also offer community service and volunteer hours. We just believe heavily that the opposite of addiction is connection. And we want to offer that to individuals on a free platform.
Thanks, Trevor. So my name is Charlie, and I am also a person in long-term recovery. And one of the unique things about USARA is, in addition to being certified through the state of Utah, we're also all in recovery ourselves with lived experience. That's a way to relate to individuals, and the clinical piece is a very important role in people's recovery, but they also need that ability to talk to somebody that they know can relate to them, you know, and we've been there, done that, and have the scars to prove it. Like Trevor was saying, with us believing that connection is the opposite to addiction, we have events like our Family Fun Night, where once or twice a month we have a fun, sober social activity where anybody can come, bring their kids. There's free pizza, movies, and popcorn, things like that. We have our Rally for Recovery coming up, where USARA has a hand at the legislative level trying to adjust some of our laws to be something where it's more, they're better suited for the people, you know, who have built a life in recovery and can prove that, you know, laws that help them move on with their life, and things like the Good Samaritan Act, where, you know, instead of throwing bodies into the local river, they're calling the police and not being criminalized for whatever may be in the area. We have our PAC panel, which is our Peer Advisory Council. USARA is not a center where we make the rules and we decide what there's going to be, and that's that. We are Ogden's community, and in Salt Lake, we're Salt Lake's community. And so we have a meeting once a month, every month, on the first Tuesday, where different leaders of the community, in addition to people in recovery, get together and help us figure out what Ogden needs to have, what kind of support meetings, so on and so forth. One of those support meetings is CRAFT, and that stands for Community Reinforcement and Family Training. That is for the loved ones of people that are addicted. It seems like anymore, if you haven't had issues with addiction on your own level, you have a loved one who has, in one way or another. And so we have a space where once a week, every week, we have an instructive type support meeting where we teach them things. They get a free book and a free workbook, and we teach them things like how to create boundaries, how not to enable, how to communicate in a way with their loved one that's going to make them more receptive to ideas of treatment. All sorts of cool, like statistical information, so on and so forth. We are proud to announce that we'll be hosting Recovery Day this year for 2020, and we're really looking forward to that. We want to make sure that we have as many options as possible for people. We want to have staffing agencies or companies that will hire, you know, people with a criminal record. We want to have maybe attorneys that will do expungements. We want to have treatment options, both preventative and, you know, like when they need the treatment. And last, we are always looking for more opportunities to be involved in our community and to get the input of what the community wants. So that's all.
Thank you guys so much. Does anybody have any questions or comments? One thing I really appreciate, I just want to say personally, I participated in a training that your organization put on recently, a webinar around like the language that we use to identify different people facing different challenges in our community. And I found it so educational for me. I mean, I work in a lot of these fields where we talk about sort of issues that people are facing all the time. For example, one example was, you know, sometimes when we talk about people that are experiencing homelessness, we might say the homeless or something like that. And so then we're only identifying the person by that one thing that they have, you know, their whole person, but there's this one thing that's going on with them. So I really loved that training, just thinking about people experiencing certain kinds of situations and that that's not the only thing that defines them. And I just really appreciated it so much. I learned quite a bit. So your work is in all different areas too, and so I really appreciate that. Thank you both so much for coming.
Chair, do they have an
Oh.
office in the area?
Yeah, they just moved to the area. Do you want to tell them about it?
To the area. We officially opened doors in November. We're right located at the Three Links Tower building, just right up the road.
Okay.
Right across from the library. And you have an office in Salt Lake, and then do you have a staff member that's down south too?
Yeah, so we're officially statewide. We have an office in St. George, in Carbon County, let me do it this way. St. George, Price, Moab, Ogden, and Salt Lake.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's totally free and open access.
Good.
Yes, and we are
Thanks, you
funded
guys.
by state, government, and grants, and then private donations, so, yeah.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Now I'd like to invite our Community and Economic Development Director, the annual report, so Tom Christopoulos. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair, Council members. Thanks for having me. Appreciate. I will try to be brief, which is very difficult for me, but I will try anyway. The report that you've received, we publish twice a year. One is the formal report that you see, and then the second one is a little less extensive and a little less artsy and has a little bit more data. So each department has a report out that you'll see, and we kind of will go over that today. We've had a number of accolades, and we continue to get them. I think most of you are aware of those, but for those in the audience that may not be, I think it's good to know that we were acknowledged to be one of the 20 best places for business and careers, the best mountain bike towns with the lowest cost of living, top 100 best places to live in the United States, the second best place to raise a family and a balanced lifestyle. We think those are good, and they're basically underscored by the Economic Development Report. So over the last 5 years, we've averaged about 1,000 jobs a year, as you can see, and over the last decade, that's been about the same. We've been in we're typically in the top 10 in the nation in job creation. And the increase that you can see is from 2013 to 2017 is nearly 14%. We have a very unique situation in our city in that we make up one of the largest GDP contributors of any one city to any one given county. That means that we make up more of the GDP of the county than you would say, for example, in Salt Lake County or Utah County. And so we also contribute more in taxes than any other given city to our local county taxes than any other given city in the state of Utah. Our household incomes are increasing and they continue to go up, but we're still below the state average. So we had 15 recruitment projects this year, 15 retention and expansion projects, 600 projected initial jobs from those companies that we landed, which I'll show you in a bit. 307 projected additional jobs based on the type of jobs that are there, $82 million worth of economic impact, and 31 million in change in earnings that those jobs will create, and about a $1.3 million change in local taxes, and that's typically through property taxes or additional sales taxes that we gain. Economic trends, the county, we continue to provide 3,740 jobs. This is on the county basis. So if you take the number of jobs that I'll talk to you about locally, you'll see that a good portion are being created in the county as well as the city. Our unemployment rate is, I think throughout the United States, is fairly low. We're a little higher than the rest of the areas around us. The average monthly wage is $31.10 and in the area, and we're slightly below that. Recruitment this year was England Logistics, is a fairly large wage employer. Their logisticians help move large amounts of freight throughout the United States, have a centralized location, and they are here in the Kiesel building. Cord USA was a long-term effort that not only our staff, but actually the Mark and the mayor were heavily involved with over the last 4 years in attracting this advanced manufacturing company from Australia, Oatly, which makes oat milk, which I have no idea how they manage that. It's a lot of milking machines for those oats. Sorry. The Strata Funds Solutions is a company that moved here from the southern counties and is what we call a fintech operation, financial technical operation, and they support a number of companies throughout the United States. Retention and expansion, I think everyone is aware. This is our 10th year of doing business retention and expansion. Amir Sports, which is one of the ones that we worked on to move, to continue their operations here, but also to move their distribution from Tennessee. Enable Utah's expansion, which is an important nonprofit to the community, has been here for over 20 years. They'll continue to employ those with handicaps. The Internal Revenue Service Public Administration expansion, which is fairly significant. And the Set Point, which for those of you that don't know Set Point, you've all ridden on a Set Point ride. If you've gone to Disneyland or any of the other places, they also make all of the production equipment for Tesla and a number of other things that are out there. I'll let you kind of deal with the additional projects that we worked on. They're smaller ones. We wanted to also let you know that we work also with small companies. The Business Information Center is where our small business loans are. Some of the loans that we did this year were Taboo Pizza, Wildflower Outdoor, micro enterprise loans, and She's Dope Too. Use Maple Garden, which if you've been there has been open the last couple of months. La Cachina del Silva, El Changaro Loco, and the Elisa Rojas Insurance Agency, and all of those go through a training program, and then we give them various funds that they need to get their businesses started. So we loaned over $225,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we create 26 jobs predominantly this year in low, moderate income classes. That is not always the case, but in this year it was. We offer, again, business counseling and mentoring and partnerships through the Service Corps of Retired Executives and the WS Small Business Development Fund, and we're working on a number of other different initiatives to expand our funding through a number of other programs, the Ogden Business Loan Program, and through the Wildcat Seed Foundation, which we'll talk about a little bit more next year.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Tom, do you mind? I just don't recollect, but do any of these loan programs help, businesses that already existed to help improve or,
Yeah,
do kind of development?
most of them over the last 10 years actually have had a start or moving out of a garage or moving out of a smaller location or trying to get done. We do, in some years, we'll do more startups than others. They'll be fresh, but we work with anybody that comes in and has a reasonable business plan, goes through the training, and we feel that then it goes through a loan review. And if we feel like they can be successful, and they're ready to go. We'll be more than willing to help them. There have been a number of companies that have gone through the program over the years that are now much larger businesses employing other people, many other people. So the business development initiatives. So we work right now, one of the biggest challenges we have, which is a very unique thing that we haven't had for a long time, is that we don't have sufficient workforce to support all the jobs that are coming on. So workforce alignment efforts continue with Ogden and Weber School Districts, the Weber State University, Ogden Weber Tech College, Hill Air Force Base, Utah Advanced Materials, and other things. So with the expansion of Hill Air Force Base and secondary missions that are coming out of there, it is creating a significant challenge for everyone in northern Utah to support those businesses. We've talked about the business expansion and retention program, and we're doing more of that now with Hill Air Force Base, prime and subprime contractors, as we work with them to try to find additional employees. So and then we're doing a lot of proactive business recruitment efforts, the National Business Aviation Association, shooting, hunting, outdoor site selector guild conferences, and we do those in the Paris Air Show and a number of others that we work that aren't listed here every year. So we hosted the second annual Unmanned Aerial Systems Summit with 200 registered attendees, which is a growing industry at which we can be at the forefront, is related to our aerospace industries. Our redevelopment projects we've talked about to some degree. The Ogden Business Exchange, which we have never been able to shake the name Trackline, is now nearly full. We have 2 lots left, and hopefully that'll be finished this year. The Kiesel Lotus Building, which is also fully leased up and is going to be home to the Hill Air Force Base Mission and Guidance System Software Design Group. The Thorstensen Building, which will also be home to the Hill Air Force Guidance area. I think everyone's familiar with the 9 Rails Creative District and the Monarch, which is the lead project. The airport is a significant focus for this year as we try to prepare for the C-130 mission and its potential landing. No, I always use that term and it always shakes people. The C-130 project and trying to attract it to our airport, and the Business Depot Ogden, which continues to be one of the masthead most successful projects that we've done. Future projects, which I think most everyone the council's familiar with, but those in the audience may not be: Continental CRA redevelopment, the Gramercy CRA, the Rite Aid site, the new Ogden Airport CRA, the First Security Bank renovation, which should start in the 3rd quarter of this year, which is information that we just received. East Temple redevelopment, the North Union Station redevelopment, which is part of the Make Ogden plan, which we hope that you will attend one of the final meetings this week. Next week. Thank you. Community development, we've spent a lot of time focusing on it, and these are just the summary numbers. We have sold 9 homes at the Stonehill subdivision. We have 3 under contract. That's 12. That's over half of what we plan on developing there, so we should be sold through in the next 24 months. 8 single-family homes were renovated and sold. 47 home buyers received Own in Ogden down payment assistance. 47 home buyers attended home buyer education classes. One relates to the other because you have to have the education before you get the other one. 6 low-income households received funds from the Emergency Home Repair Program, and we do actually have more money in that program if other emergencies arise. 24 homeowners renovated and beautified their homes with loans from the HELP program. 4 historic buildings were restored, and we keep working on homeless prevention programs, and we're developing other ones with Ogden Can and other partners as we go through. Planning, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the planning side of things because all of the planning would take about an hour and a half to explain, and I'd leave that with Greg. But I'll leave it with you that there's over 100, the thing that is important to look at is we approved 344 dwelling units. 98 of those units are now under construction. That was last year, and just one of the highlights that are there. Greg's been obviously really busy with a lot of the planning initiatives that we have. There are still some very important things to be done that we'll bring to the council in the next year, which is the recodification and update of the general plan. We've updated segments of the general plan as we've gone, but there still is a lot more work to be done. Building services, if you look at those number of permits this year, there's 2,236 permits, which keeps them very busy, considering we were never over 2/3 staffed. And the permit fee revenue, whoops, I better get there. Business licenses, we're nearly 6,000 business licenses, and that's down, but that's because we took out home-based businesses and we no longer charge fees for home-based businesses. And code services, 2,969 cases, 7,000 cases were closed, and $226,000 in code enforcement fees were collected. And you can see we left just one of the pictures. We have a number of code enforcement pictures like the one up in the right-hand corner, but we just thought we'd give you one. There are a couple that are worse than that, but those are good to have. Arts and culture. Arts and culture, there's 235 special events, 1,000 volunteers. The key this year, the key event was the sesquicentennial celebration. It was a major undertaking for our staff in that they ended up being the default central committee in order to pull that whole thing together. It was a wonderful event. 100,000 people came. Our nearest estimate is 100,000 people that came in. And I believe, as most people are familiar with, the amphitheater had 100 program days, 15 free family movies, 10 concerts with 48,906 tickets sold, 69,000, and that was a break-even year for us, or slightly better than break-even year. So Christy and her group basically needed oxygen at the end of the year and deserve it well. Arts, which our focus on arts started about 4 years ago, and so there's the 100,000 in arts were awarded to 27 grantees. We've had that program longer, but we restructured it. 10,000 people attended the first Friday art stroll, and 28 participated in galleries and businesses. And the Mayor's Award in Arts, which has been a long-term tradition. The Nine Rails District got off the ground, and we have $570,000 encumbered to create and install 4 new public arts projects. The Junction parking structure walls, the Corner Plaza public art piece in conjunction with the plaza upgrades. Design work for Ogden Avenue Art Plaza, the installation of the directional sign in the Junction Park. And then the corner, which is the other featured, you'll be seeing improvements on the corner, which will make that a nice featured area over time. The airport increased operations by 20%. The 10-year master plan will be presented to you in April for conclusion in May. I think you're going to be happy with that plan. That plan basically talks about new taxi projects and nearly over $500 million in new development at the airport over the next 20 years. It's one of the major economic development efforts for the city in the next 20 years, and one that we'll be happy to share with you as we go through it. So we continue to ride our flights to Mesa, and we continue to, which are 92 to 98% full. We're still pursuing other commercial flights. There are starting to be some more emerging companies that are looking at secondary airports, so hopefully we'll be able to report something to you in those days. So there are 307 based aircraft. That's an increase of 23% at the airport. and the aerospace, and we are working really heavily with organizations such as Northrop Grumman Boresight, U.S. Forest Service, Hill Air Force Base directly. Airport and business development staff are trying to land some of these businesses, and there are a couple of them that we should be able to talk about in the next 90 days. Union Station, as you know, is this the third year or is this second year, third year that we took it over? We're up over about 100,000. We're at 100,000 visitors. We've completed additional Union Station renovation and beautification projects, taking care of the fountain, doing the bathrooms, repairing one of the oldest boilers on the planet. And so those things continue to go on. We've hosted 12 annual multicultural events, accounting for an increase of 15,000 visitors. The Day of the Dead was one of the kind of new great public events that were done in the last year. The museum continued to see year-over-year increase. So busy department, lots of things going on. I'm happy to answer any questions. That's kind of the shorthand for all of that.
Great job.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Good presentation.
Thank you.
Those jobs that are coming, are they higher than normal wages? What kind of jobs are we seeing in the
So
600 and some this year?
The 600 jobs this year are pretty much, with the exception of the logistics jobs, are pretty much in the mid area. The jobs that we're currently recruiting now are very high paying. So the jobs that are coming in the C-130 project and some of the other related projects are in six figures. So a lot of the emerging technical jobs that are coming out of Hill Air Force Base are very high paying. And they're also very skill oriented. And so that's one of the big changes, trying to find employees that have those skill sets and being able to match them up. One of the things that we've had to do is we used to recruit companies, now we recruit people. And so we have to recruit people that can fill the skilled positions that are there. But I think it's one of the trends that you're going to notice most significantly over the next 5 years is that the job valuations are, as far as what they pay, are going to be significantly higher than what we've had in the past.
Great news. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Good, so now we have approval of the minutes, the joint work session of November 19th, 2019. Councilmember Heyer.
I reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate to the best of my recollection.
I second it.
And I'll make a motion that we approve minutes.
I second it.
And that was really good. Yeah, you knew it was coming ahead of
Yeah, a
time.
second and a motion.
Yeah, and a motion and a second. Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Councilmember Stevens. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Since I ride with him to council meeting,
Yeah.
I
You
can
can read his
almost
mind.
anticipate what he's thinking.
Great, and now we have a common consent agenda item, Central Weaver Sewer Improvement District Board, the consideration of appointing Councilmember Heyer to the board.
Chair, I will go ahead and make a motion that we adopt the item listed under common consent.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Blair and a second by Councilmember White to approve the common consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that passes. Thank you for your service, Councilmember Heyer.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming, and their parents. Thank you very much. So now we actually have reports from the Planning Commission, but first I wanted to quickly review our...
Chair Chaburka,
Oh,
I'm
please.
sorry. Just go back. The CED report was accept for review.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I missed that. Thank you
And
so
I'm
much.
sorry I was slow.
Oh, no, we were so fast. No, I apologize, I didn't remember that. Would anybody like to present a motion on that item?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we, on item 4B, that we accept for review the Community and Economic Development Annual Report.
Thank you.
Second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, second by Vice Chair Blair to accept the report. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that passes. Thank you so much, Janine, for the reminder there. We're just ready to move on. Great, so first I'd like to just remind everybody of our civility statement for the council chambers. We really appreciate any public comments or participation and really appreciate all the attendance that's here tonight. Just want to make sure that we remind everybody that this is an atmosphere of mutual respect and civility, and we'll maintain that during the proceedings tonight. We all, of course, will remain dignified, respectful, and courteous during the city council meetings, and we would ask that of everyone else, please. We value all the opinions and points of view as long as they're presented in a civil manner. The council will not tolerate personal attacks, rudeness, disrespectful comments, insults, name-calling, or belittling comments. We certainly want to maintain an environment where everyone feels safe in expressing their opinions. And so we don't do clapping, shouting, or booing during the meetings unless actually the chair says it's okay. Also, we wanted to make sure to point out, and we'll make sure that this is, well, everybody's well aware that we do have services if you need help with not being able to hear the meetings very well, or if you'd like translation in Spanish. We're always happy to try to arrange some of those accommodations ahead of time. Thank you. So tonight, the first report is the proposed Lynn Community Plan Amendment and Rezone at 150 to 152 West 2nd Street. Just so the audience members are aware, if you're here for that item, we think that there might be a chance, depending on the length of the meeting, that this item might be tabled until next week for a decision. But we really do want to hear all of your opinions and ideas about it. So first, we'll have the presentation by Greg Montgomery. Thank you.
Well, he's coming up, Chair. If I might just kind of interject that we felt a little handicapped without two members of our council tonight. We felt like we maybe ought to postpone it just so that we could get their attendance for this as well. So,
yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the council, you have before you tonight a recommendation from the Planning Commission regarding a petition that had been filed by Sean Strong, looking at rezoning the property that is just to the west of the northwest corner of 2nd and Wall Avenue. The Planning Commission reviewed this petition of looking at 4.72 acres of property that is presently zoned R1, and that is the area outlined in red, and looking at the request to rezone it to R3. Originally, the petition was for R5, but that was amended, and the request was to look at this area in red as R3. Now, the area in yellow, you have rezoned to R3 conditional overlay, which is 3.13 acres. As you can see, this proposal is larger than the original one you looked at, and basically has its frontage off of 2nd Street, and then goes north up to the existing subdivision that is north of this area. One of the things the Planning Commission looked at and determining any request to rezone is how does it fit with the community plan, and this petition actually had two parts to it. One was to amend the community plan, and when also to consider the rezoning. The reason for the amending the community plan, as you see in this drawing, is that area in yellow, which corresponds to the area rezoned, talked about having an R3 conditional overlay option or a professional institutional or a light commercial option. The petition that took place last year was for it to be residential R3 option, but the plan does not show anything beyond that corner in terms of having an R3 opportunity. One of the things that the Commission considers is what has taken place in terms of development. This property, as you can see in this photo, this is an older photo before the area developed where it is today. So if you take a look at a lot of the vacant property that exists now, compare that with how it looks today, you'll notice that this corner or this area is one of the few areas left of development in the Lynn community area. Since the planned development, 483 homes have been built, 14 duplexes, 66 units in apartment. A new elementary school has been moved from the east side of Wall to the west side of Wall Avenue. And so as the Commission looked at the development patterns, they looked at, is this consistent with our general plan? Has the development followed the planning. In this case, one of the things we looked at is where do we look at the centers of the community? One of the centers the plan talked about is at 5 Points, and that being the concentration of those different roads, the 5 roads coming together at that point, and being that really is the heart of major development and density occurring. And then the plan shows lower densities happening away from the 5 Points area, and then something potentially happening maybe at the BDO entrance off of 2nd Street. So the questions the commission asked themselves is 2nd and Wall also a center? Does higher density reflect the character of the neighborhood? And does the density proposed, does it isolate the neighborhood? And is this area in transition? And have there been changes that have been inconsistent or consistent with the planning efforts? One of the things we looked at is the neighborhood character. This kind of gives you an idea of the different densities that have developed. Fort Bingham subdivision at 3.6 units, Aspen Acres 4.4. Some of the earlier multiple family developments such as Parkwood or Bramblewood, which was done many, many years ago, were at 11 and 15 units an acre. And recently in the commercial zone, there's a 22 unit an acre development taking place of low to moderate income housing project.
Greg, do you mind just explain what DUA stands for?
Dwelling units an acre. So the overall development pattern in this area has been somewhere between 3 to 4 units an acre. That's been the average, except in those areas where it has been zoned R3, such as Parkwood or Bramblewood, or where it is zoned commercial, such as where the 5 Points Center is located at. After looking at that, then the commission also looked at consideration. This is a draft concept of what is being proposed to be done with the R3 property if it's rezoned. That would they take the density from 0.6 units an acre to 18.6 units an acre with this concept that had been proposed with rezoning. The other consideration was not only is it a plan amendment, but it's also a text amendment to the community plan. In 2000, I want to say 2005 or 2007, one of those dates, after many variations of petitions to look at the rezoning the corner property, the community plan was amended to also add language that was a clarification of the map and saying that the vacant property would be considered first in any rezoning request, and that with that vacant development, anything that is rezoned should be done as a conditional overlay. And that the intent of the community plan was that combining additional properties beyond the corners would not be allowed without being consistent with the plan. Therefore, as the Planning Commission considered this request, not only with the plan map, but also the plan language, they felt there were some inconsistencies with the proposal to go beyond the R3 that had already been rezoned. The next consideration was, what do the different zones mean? What do they allow? R16, which the petition property is now.
Can I back you up
Yes.
just a little bit before we get too far ahead? On your previous slide, it talked about combining properties other than on the corner. Define the corner, if you would.
So the corner would mean those parcels that existed that had frontage on 2 streets.
So
as the parcels existed then,
does it make it the corner property?
well, that's what this is saying, is you can't combine and now make that corner bigger from what it was in the plan.
That's all I wanted to be clear on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So then, again, looking at what does the different zones mean. R16 is single family zone. It does allow planned unit developments to occur if the property is at least 5 acres in size. And the general maximum density is 7.2 dwelling units an acre. What does R2 allow? Many 2001, a lot of this area that is now R16 was R2, and it was downzoned. But again, in terms of density, it didn't change what could happen in terms of a subdivision or PUD What it did exclude was duplexes being allowed to be developed as part of that individual lot development. And R3 allows from single-family units to multiple family units, meaning more than one dwelling in a building. And that gets up to a maximum of 18 units an acre if you build an apartment building. If you're doing a PRUD, you're somewhere around 15 units an acre. So that kind of gives you that sliding scale of how these zones reflect how development patterns have taken place in the neighborhood. And so when we talk about rezoning, that's what it talks about, what changes could take place in terms of the number of buildings. Again, as the commission talked about, the character of the area has changed, but has not changed from what was anticipated. The developments have been single-family homes. The duplex developments that took place at the more southern part of the community was in fact one of the reasons we went to the downzoning of much of the property in the city from R2 to R1 because of the duplex developments and the lack of home ownership in any form in that area. And so I was trying to restabilize the area, make sure we have a good mix of housing, and look at the options that could take place in the future. In terms of special circumstances, the commission looked at, are there any regional changes that have taken place or transportation changes? And do these conflict with the general plan and the objectives? The commission's conclusion was that it did not, that the things that took place in 2005 or 7 that led to that corner being proposed as the plan has with R3 possibly on the corner, but other properties being R1, they said the other items that have taken place have not led to a need to consider a plan amendment. So in their recommendation to you, they're recommending that the Lynn Community Plan not be amended, and that vote was 7-0 to deny the request to amend the plan. Now, I also want to just cover the other part of the petition, and that was actual rezoning request. So these are the properties and the present owners who properties would be considered in the rezoning if you consider that. Again, one of the first steps is it consistent with the community plan? Well, once the commission answered that, then they looked at these parcels and said, well, if it's not consistent with the plan, how do we move forward then with considering rezoning the actual property if the plan doesn't lead to that? And so these areas that are outlined in red in the 4 different property owners, the commission felt, again, that because of the inconsistency with the community plan, that the zoning is not reflecting the character of the area. The concepts for development being more property now fronts 2nd Street and does not front Wall Avenue, that the idea of transitioning from higher density to lower density is a more important principle to follow than expanding the higher density further along 2nd Street. And also that is there a demonstrated need for the additional high density or higher density, I shouldn't say high density, but medium range density on this further vacant piece that's more into the middle of properties rather than on the main traffic streets. And again, as they looked at those items that are part of the community plan and the general plan, they also felt that rezoning would be inconsistent and recommend denial of rezoning the properties to R3. So that's the Planning Commission's recommendation to you regarding those 2 items, and they are intertwined. One has to happen for the other to happen. Any questions you might have of me, or?
I do have another question. I don't know if you've got a slide that shows the street and the island that's in the street. Yeah, there you go. So all of that would have to exit onto 2nd Street. So it looks like it's essentially all a right out and right in. Is that correct?
Yeah, and then you'd turn, do a U-turn around the island.
A U-turn.
Yeah.
And that's still in place for the thing on the place on the corner too, right?
The place on the corner could actually probably.
Part of the CO was that they had to have a right out off of that too. That's if my
well, they have a Wall Avenue access.
That's true. Other than the wall, that's right.
and then then they have the Second Street access too. But the Second Street access is before the island, so there would be those people who would.
Well, they'd do it, I know, but it
Yeah, I'd
was.
say the sign won't stop
Yeah,
that from
yeah,
happening.
I see what you're saying.
They might be able to exit on Wall over there, where the Strickler property is too.
Yeah, perhaps.
So how many exits would be onto Wall Avenue?
The state would only allow one exit. Off of
And that
Wall
would be the corner section?
That'd be the furthest north they can get it.
The Strickland then.
Okay, I'm good.
Any other questions or comments for Greg?
I would like to go back to inconsistency of the area. I'm sure as we see development and changes in the area, could you just mainly just review again that to me, I got the impression that you said that the Planning Commission considered that there was no drastic change to the area, and that's why inconsistency was not available in this concept here. So.
Yes, so if you compare these two photos, the development that has taken place has been single-family homes.
Okay.
And that is what the zoning allows. There hadn't been development of any other types proposed since the plan. That was not what the plan had talked about happening. So those areas that were zoned multiple family have developed as multiple family. Those areas that are commercial have developed both as multiple family and commercial. And that's where those changes have taken place to address housing needs. And the single family areas have grown and developed. And while they have become smaller lots from what the original property had been with larger farm lots or pastures, as they've developed now into the smaller lots, that has all been consistent with how we would see development taking place and the road patterns that are developed to then circulate around those areas.
So the community plan lends itself to single-family dwellings, is that right?
In majority of the areas, and then in those areas that I mentioned, the 5 Points itself, or the plan talks about at North Street and Harrisville Road, that is a potential area for multiple family to occur. So it has identified those areas where multiple family can occur, and those areas where single family should occur.
But the areas that you pointed out was not in the condensity of multiple.
In the plan,
family.
yes, as far as becoming multiple family. Other than the four corners on Second and Wall.
Okay.
Any other questions? We can invite up the petitioner, Sean Strong. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you, Sean Strong. Yeah, so initially when we went before the planning and zoning, it was going to be an R5. And then after discussing with some of the neighbors and the staff, we decided it was probably too high of density. So literally at the meeting, at the planning and zoning meeting, I told the commission that, hey, I no longer want to do an R5. But where it was a public hearing, the attorney, I think it was Mark, maybe it was here, decided we should probably go through with the public hearing because there's a lot of people here who wanted to voice their concerns. I did initially at the meeting say I did want to change it to the R3CO. I wasn't aware that it officially changed that night. I thought they just voted on the Lynn Community Plan and the R5. So I wasn't quite sure if they really voted on the R5 or not. But just to be clear, these are single family dwellings. I think originally the original developer came in and was planning on doing multifamily, and my initial R5 was that intent as well. However, since then, it is single-family dwelling. They're attached homes. So they each have their tax ID number. They're not rental units. They're not high-rise. They're not high-density. It's low to moderate, just like Greg said as well. After the meeting, I did meet with some of the neighbors because there is some concern with some traffic in the area. So I went ahead and did a traffic study because I know it's a concern for some of the residents and the cities as well. And so I went out and paid $4,000 and did a traffic study, and I did get that back, and there was virtually no adverse effects with even the higher density coming into this area. I also spoke with, I think it's Dan, which is the city engineer, and shared with him, and he had the same consent that he actually said it would be like a teacup in the Titanic, is what he said. And I realized there's a lot of traffic there. In that traffic study as well, it also said that the majority, I think 2/3, 66%, they felt would access off the wall, exit, egress and ingress on the north area. On that north, I think it's the Strickland home, which is north there. They felt that the majority of the traffic would be there as well. And then another concern was obviously the historic nature of the area, some of the old farm homes and whatnot. And I met with the residents, and I first offered, hey, I'll walk away if you guys want to buy them from the homeowners, and you guys can restore them. But of course, they didn't want to do that. So I told them I'd work with them in doing that. Some of the homeowners that are selling these properties, they just aren't able to keep up with the deferred maintenance and the liability. As you know, Ogden City just owned that BDO property, the administrative building that they just demolished last week. And it's a historic building. And one of the reasons they did it, what your administrator said, was the liability. Even though it's a historic nature, they couldn't, the cost was too much to upgrade it, and the liability was too great at this time. So I felt like we've done a lot to keep the historic nature of the area. I feel like if you know the area of Fort Bingham and the Aspen Acres, these units will be very similar. Actually, they'll be a little better quality. They'll be the same square footage with basements, 2-car garages. There'll even be more hard surface on the exteriors as well. So.
Right, so I know that several council members had lots of questions. Do you have questions for the petitioner? I think one question was, if this doesn't go through tonight, or it stays with the recommendation of the Planning Commission, would you take it back through the process again with your new plan? Because I think that's some of the challenges, that the old plan has a very different footprint than what you're describing now.
Right, and there was some confusion on that, and I would do that. And after discussion, I would just do pretty much the same developers agreement, the same amount of units on that front piece, which I believe is 10 units per acre. So it would just be a similarity to that first piece. And one of the pieces in this second phase is on Wall Avenue. It's that Strickland piece. It's kind of an older home as well. So there would be a piece on Wall, adjacent to that corner, and on 2nd Street as well. And it would also give a third entrance onto 2nd, which would alleviate a little more pressure as well as far as the traffic goes.
Questions?
I wished I had you provided some schematics of the homes and what they looked like.
I did email, I think I emailed them to every one of the council members as well as Greg just in the last few weeks. Whether you got them or not, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But
I do have a question about the concern is the units per acre.
Right.
When we're changing it now to the single family and stuff like that. Do you know how many units per acre you're?
So currently on the corner piece, it's 10 units per acre, and I would just match that on the interior. I'd just continue that on. 10 units, the same dwelling, single family attached units, 2-car garage. I think it's 46% open space, landscaped green area. And I believe the hard surface was 70% as far as the structure goes. So, I mean, I feel it's consistent with the area. If you've ever been through the Aspen Acres or Fort Bingham, they're all vinyl with just a little bit of stone along the front and really nothing on the other 3 sides. Okay. So, and it's important because these are for sale units, so I want to build a quality product actually. So,
I feel like I have your email, but it doesn't have that same schematic. So maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. To me, it does look a lot more like townhomes or something like that.
Yeah, they're single family attached homes.
Okay.
Which you can call them townhomes, but they're single
well,
family.
That helps. I apologize.
No. So multifamilies like a duplex, triplex, apartments, they have one tax ID number and it's the whole thing.
Okay.
And a single family dwelling, even if it's attached, they each have their individual tax ID number, so you can sell each one. It's a homeowner. Even though it's a common wall, it's a single family dwelling.
Okay.
So, and a lot of people get mixed up on that, and the high density thing, the moderate density, and so
I get mixed up all the time.
It is. It's confusing. I'm a real estate appraiser as well, so it's still confusing.
Any other questions or comments?
So my understanding from what Bart indicated and asked the question about units per acre is that the corner piece would be 10 units per acre. Is
Correct.
that right?
Yeah.
And the rest of it would also be 10 units
Well,
per
yeah, that's
acre?
what I'd be proposing is go to the same R3CO zone with a 10 units per acre.
Okay.
Initially, even again, I was trying to do a little bit more, but then I thought, well, hey, I'll do a clubhouse and pool because the more units you can get, obviously you can have more amenities because there's more people that can pay for that. But at this point, I think if we just match, phase one of that and do the same units per acre, I think that would be adequate.
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming. Okay, so at this time we'll be able to accept public input, and I would just recommend if someone else has said the same thing you're planning to say, maybe have them be a spokesperson for your group. We have received a lot of emails and other correspondence that we've all logged ourselves or talked to people. So if you step forward and just say your name for the record, and please keep your comments under 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Terry Lanier. When you look at that diagram that they were showing you, if they buy the other property, I'm the one that's isolated. I'm the one little house sitting there that won't rezone. I have no plans of selling. I can't afford to sell right now. That's kind of my retirement. My mom and grandmother owned that home, and so I'm kind of planning on staying there. I do have concerns, being that I will be surrounded a lot. Also with that, the road that's next to me, a lot of incoming and outgoing traffic. And with respect, I've done statistics. I know what reports look like and stuff, and I appreciate that. But the reality of living there compared to what those reports say doesn't always capture what that reality is of the traffic, the noise, the congestion, the diesels coming around, the accidents, the close calls that we see, many of us, I've seen. So that still is a concern that I do feel is important. There's also a lifestyle. We've talked about that. I have actually spoken with Sean. Sean came to my home. He was very kind, and he sat and we discussed the concerns that we had at the time, and they're still the same. And just that, I guess my concern on a personal level is I bought that home with the intent of staying there. That is my home. It's not just a house. It's not just something to make money. It's where I live, and it's where I plan to live for right now, at least, unless they push me out. And I don't want to live in the midst of a sea of a lot of people. Single homes I can understand, but a lot, I don't know if I could handle that. So those are the things that I, as a city or as a citizen, would concern myself with, and I do want to live, and I want to compromise. We do want to have that developed. I stated that the last time I stepped before the council. Absolutely, that needs to be developed, but we shouldn't just disregard those who were there first, who've invested, and who plan to stay there, who would like to stay there, would like to have those things considered as well. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just, what was your name again?
Terry Lanier.
Okay, I'm just looking at the parcel map. I just want to make sure I got where you're at.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other comments?
I'm Donnell Willie, and I live at 133 West 2nd Street. I am 5th generation to own the home, and I'm just kind of concerned when he says that they did a traffic study. I would like to see that documentation for that, because the way that the streets has been with all the traffic from the BDO is unreal. There are times where I can't even get out of my driveway. I do have a business there, and there are times that my clients can't even get into my residence due to the traffic. That is a huge concern for me. Last week, my car was broken into. Our house has been robbed. with all of this development, I'm concerned. I don't want it to be a big, I mean, I'm all for single dwelling homes, but I'm very, very concerned with, like I said, the traffic, the accidents that we see there. When 12th Street, they had a fatality. All of the traffic come through BDO. From 4 until 10 o'clock at night, I couldn't get out of my driveway. I've almost been hit trying to get my mail because they are driving on that street as a 2-lane and it's a 1-lane. And I've taken a video of that. There's just, the traffic alone is just horrendous, and that scares me. And with having more people in that density, I'm sure it's just gonna escalate. So I just really hope that you would consider us that have been there. Like I said, I'm 5th generation to own the home, and that you would rule to not allow this to go through. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Anna Keogh. I live at 301 West 2nd Street. We've lived there since 1982. And in 1986, the Lynn Community Plan came into effect, and it's really served our community well. Under that plan, in 1995, the West Oaks subdivision began on the south side of 2nd Street. And then in 2000, the Aspen Acres subdivision began on the north side of 2nd Street. And in 2002, under that plan, West 2nd Street got sidewalks, curb and gutters, and a median to make a nice residential corridor for these new subdivisions. And on the south side of 2nd Street, the sidewalk is a curving sidewalk, and it's 5 feet wide to accommodate the 1997 walking tour brochure that Landmarks Commission published of the vintage farmhouses in the area. So it's made our neighborhood really nice. And then in 2004, the Fort Bingham subdivision was built on the north side of the street. So under the community plan, we have these subdivisions with 3 to 4, I think it's 4 units per acre, and it's just worked really well. And I think I'd like to just see it stay that way, a continued low-density housing with 3 or 4 units per acre. And I think all of us that live there are really happy with our neighborhood and with our subdivisions. We're really proud of it. We just like to keep it the same way with single-family homes. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys may want to queue up just a little bit so there's not the time in between movement.
I've got one thing.
Oh, go right ahead.
I've got a petition here.
You can just give it to that man right there.
Okay, that's 40
Chair?
signatures of people.
Can I ask her a question?
Sure.
It's 40 signatures of people that couldn't attend the meeting that would like it to stay single
Sure.
family.
Thank you.
Anna,
Question?
Anna, you're about as close to the mayor of that community as I can imagine. That's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah.
How has like the Aspen Village, Aspen, whatever it is, Anna, we thought we'd like to talk to you as the mayor of the community. You know, you've been there so long and have all the history. How has the development that's happened north of 2nd Street affected the quality of life for you folks?
I think the quality of life has been, you're talking about the 2 subdivisions?
Yeah, the Aspen.
Aspen Acres and Fort Bingham.
Mhm.
The quality of life for me has been very good. And the friends that I have that live in those subdivisions are happy. Everything's well kept. The crime is very low. Sometimes cars are broken into, but it's a good, the community mixes well together. I think they're proud of the vintage old houses on 2nd Street, and we're proud of the nice, well-kept subdivisions on both the north and the south side of the street.
So it's really just the density that you're concerned about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
that.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Julie Van Orden, and I live at 215 West 2nd Street, and we've lived there since 1996. And I'm speaking in support of the rezoning to R3. And a 2015 survey by Envision Utah found that the majority of Utahns want a mix of housing options in their communities. And in fact, the CEO of Envision Utah, Ari Bruning, said if we want to keep any semblance of affordability, we need to make sure we have an ample supply of all kinds of housing. And I have that survey to pass.
Let's give it to this gentleman right there, please, for the record.
And also, according to census data, between 1990 and 2010, Ogden added approximately 20,000 residents, but only 2,500 rental units. So we've been behind on housing not only our own kids, but also anybody else who wants to move to Ogden and add to our diversity. And the population of Utah is expected to double by 2050. And there aren't a lot of available land choices in Ogden. In fact, there are only 40,000 developable acres left in Ogden, which is on par with what Salt Lake has left. And here you have the perfect opportunity, the perfect crossroads between developers who are willing to develop, an economy that supports this, and people willing to sell. And in addition to the lots we're talking about, you have people on the south side, where I live, of 2nd Street, willing to sell as well. So it's the perfect time to be able to do that. And we're right in between 5 Points and BDO. Both are walkable. And if those areas are developing in terms of shopping and jobs and transportation, then this is the perfect place to house more people as well. And when our pioneer ancestors came to Ogden, they used the land for what they needed it for. They needed a fort, and they built it. And what we need in the 21st century is more medium and high density housing. And so we should be able to do the exact same thing, and I think our pioneer ancestors would support us in doing that, in creating more housing available for more people in Ogden. And so our kids can stick around in the area, and we can avoid issues of homelessness, climate change, et cetera, because a California study found that people living in affordable housing drive fewer cars. And so the transportation isn't going to be quite the problem we think it might be. And also we have light rail right to the west of us with BDO. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Shelley Hart. I own the property at 140 West 2nd, which borders the empty lot. I believe I hold seniority for having lived there the longest. My parents bought the house in 1938, and my sister was 8 years old, and she's gone now. A couple years later, my brother came along, and he was raised there, and he's gone now, which leaves me. And since my parents have been gone, I've let various nieces and nephews live there rent-free with the agreement they saved the money they would have spent on rent to buy their own home. The last one is in there now. I've offered, and I now have 43 nieces and nephews, I've offered the home to them. No one wants it. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but the house is 650 feet down a lane. It showed on the picture. The water comes 650 feet down a lane off of 2nd Street, down our pasture. A couple of years ago, there was a leak in the pipe, and the west wall of the house started coming down. I had to pay out of my own pocket. Insurance does not cover that, to get the wall rebuilt and the pipe fixed. I cannot afford, and the niece that's living there now, I said, how's the water pressure? And she kind of chuckled and said, well, we have to run around in the shower to get wet. And there is no water pressure. Can you imagine what that pipe that was put in all those years ago looks like? I can't afford to replace it. The wiring needs to be replaced. The house next door, the woman that lived there, when she lived there, had goats. And the goats were allowed to come in and out of the property at random. When she moved out, she left the goats, and she left the house open. I think if you look up the word blight in the dictionary, you will find that home's picture. There are raccoons that have infested our house. Our house has been broken into because of the homeless living in that area, in the house next door to mine. My niece has been threatened. Her car's been broken into. The house is falling apart. I love that home with all my heart, but the memories are here. It isn't in that home. And to allow other families to live in that area now and to benefit from BDO, from 5 Points, the air pollution that they would say for the families that work at BDO, that could live there, it's all part and parcel. And if Mr. Strong's facts are correct, 46% green space, that's wonderful. But that old home, I'm retired now. I have my own home. I can't afford it. It is coming down, and it's beyond my grasp. Thank you.
Thank you.
Angel Castillo. I do not envy the position that the council members are in. This is very, very difficult, and I appreciate the fact that you will be putting off a decision until there's a full council, and I'm sure the community members do as well. This is a really tricky place to be because, yeah, as you know me, and I completely support what the other lady said, that, you know, we do need housing. But at the same token, we do need to make sure that we follow our community plan. And it kind of leads us down this mixed bag of, we have, this plan hasn't been updated since the 80s. And the Planning Commission is bound legally to make decisions based according to existing plan, and regardless of what you think or what you don't think. So one of the things that I definitely want to bring to your attention as a council is there is a traffic issue in this area. I went down there when we were looking at it in Planning Commission, and I sat from 5 to 6, and it is absolutely right. There are people that are driving in the emergency lane on the side, and it is very hazardous for the citizens. So I would highly suggest that the council reach out to engineering and figure out what needs to be done to at least do striping. So I think many people drive there because it's so wide they feel that they can drive there. It's a definite danger to the citizens, and I would suggest that you reach out to engineering to see how we can fix that. With an outdated plan, we are unable to allow appropriate density. Some of the answers for this particular neighborhood might be ADUs or smaller units or townhomes of assorted sizes, but our general plan doesn't allow us to look at these things because that particular area was written in the 80s. So I highly encourage you, as you move forward to budgeting, to take a look at what we need to do to get our planning department what it needs to update our plan so that we don't find ourselves in this position again. We heard about it last week. We heard about it the week before. We're hearing about it this week, and this is a song that is not going to end anytime soon. So I highly suggest that you listen to the community, and we have to act according to what we have as planned. But I highly encourage you to place adjusting our general plan at the top of the priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Pete Pavetti, 215 West 2nd Street. My wife spoke for a minute. Took most of my good points, but I'll try and get a few more. I'm actually shocked that we have to follow a 1986 plan. I mean, if that's the case, we need to change that now because you got to start my time, please.
I agree, yeah.
I'm not giving up already.
Yeah.
I mean, because the truth is nobody anticipated in 1986 what we're seeing now. We've been through 2 recessions. We've seen unprecedented growth. I had no idea when I moved there in 1996 that BDO would be so successful. And apparently it's going to be even more successful. They're talking about now adding another 3,000 or 4,000 jobs. I see an awful lot of people walk down my sidewalk going to work at BDO. They could be walking from an apartment building right there. They could be walking to a front runner station and going to Salt Lake or to Riverdale or to Layton to work. That is something we desperately need because everybody new that moves here talks about our air quality problems, and every citizen talks about it. And at some point, we can't kick that can down the road. We also can't kick the can down the road of the affordable housing. And the truth, not only with affordable housing, but you look what's been done, say, around the river, is that many new homeowners, many younger people, they don't want the house on a half an acre. They don't want to go home and mow the lawn every weekend. They want the row house, the townhouse. They want to be able to go out and recreate. They don't want to have to spend that much money on and that much time on doing their lawn. So right now, if you go down 2nd Street, you see residential, you see light commercial, you see light industrial, you see houses on 2 acres like mine. And my property, it's an outlier. The city doesn't want it there. We still have animal rights. The city does not want us to have animal rights. It needs to be developed because I'm not going to live forever. And when I die, it's not a high demand property. A house built in the 1920s with 4 bedrooms the same size, 2 bathrooms the same size, that's just not, it's worth much less than my neighbors' homes of the same size because they're newer. What makes sense is higher density housing there. And it doesn't really matter really how many units there. It matters whether the economy can support it, whether the need is there, and whether it's well done. Doesn't matter whether if it's a horribly done single family subdivision, then you haven't solved anything. I think also if you look at the picture Mr. Montgomery showed you, I mean, that's the result of what you've gotten. That's a result of the plan, not a result of what the community needs or the people of Ogden need 20, 30, 40 years going forward. That's a result of what the plan allowed, because that's pretty much all the plan would allow you to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't take that with me.
Good evening. Tammy and Rick Krieger, 159 West 2nd Street. I only brought 4 copies, but so you can share. But Anna Keogh and I put together a request for the traffic engineer. And thank you, Angel, for bringing up and validating our traffic concerns. Not to reiterate, but we did propose some mitigations to the Ogden City traffic engineer in August, and we did not get a response. So those are some ideas as you move forward with the concerns that you've heard over neighborhood safety and quality of life. I mean, we have had incidences. Just take it, and we don't go out on our street very often, but we've had 2 or 3 in the last couple years where we were almost struck as pedestrians, or just getting our grandchildren into the car parked out front. There was a fatal accident on West 2nd Street in 2017. So I would encourage you to make sure that the city has their own unbiased traffic study that's not provided by the developers, which is what we've received so far. On February 4th, we did email each of you and Mayor Caldwell an idea to use HUD subsidy funds to help restore parts of Bingham's Fort, the historic district. I am in alignment with Anna. We want development. We don't mind having it, but maintain the residential 1 designation. I probably should read what I was going to say. I spent a lot of time looking at the very well done ogdencity.com, and there is, in addition to the the consolidated plan that's going on right now, there was a Ogden City development analysis of impediments to fair housing, and it states that HUD data shows Ogden currently has a surplus of low-income affordable housing. So I encourage you to look at that HUD data because it's in contradiction to what some of the neighbors are saying. And I understand that people want to move and need to sell their homes, but let's keep it R1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Renee Woods, and I inherited a share of the house at 140 West 2nd Street from my mother, who passed away 3 years ago. Every one of my children have lived in that home at 140 West 2nd. As Shelley said, we love that home. We are heartsick to think that we have to part with it, but we can't manage it anymore. And the lady that spoke in the red sweater, I'm sorry I didn't get her name, she's right. Kids now who are just buying homes do not want to keep up yards. They do not want to keep up an acre and a half down there. There are three homes that are down at the end of that lane. The gentleman that gave the report earlier mentioned ordinance enforcement. There has been no ordinance enforcement in the home that is to the west of our property. That home is a shambles. It's a safety issue. It's a health issue. On top of having homeless people in that, it's a ridiculous situation. But we're not very far from being in that situation. We cannot replace the things that are needed to make that an historical site. We don't have the money, we don't have the talent, we don't have the time to do it. And it makes us sick to lose it after all these years that our family has owned it. But to have some high quality homes, 30 more homes. The problem they're talking about with the traffic is a long-standing problem. It's nothing to do with this development. When we lived there, before it was made into BDO, when it was the depot, you had to plan a 45-minute time that you couldn't go in or out on 2nd Street because of the depot. What it is now is nothing compared to what it was, and 30 homes is not going to greatly affect what's happening there. A 1980 plan 40 years ago did not anticipate the population growth that is taking place in Utah and in Ogden City. 30 homes on that piece of property. When we were here at the Planning Commission last time, we were unaware that Sean was going to ask for a R5 density. When he said R5 density, I refused to get up and speak in his behalf. We don't want to do that to our neighbors. We don't want to make it a bad place. We love that part of town. And those homes at 30 homes that he's looking at adding are going to add to that community and add to the things that go on, bring good people in at a better rate than decaying, decrepit places that are bringing in homeless people.
Thank you. Any other comments? Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Dave Montgomery, and I live at 317 West 2nd Street. The issue, as I see it, is not the people not wanting to sell or wanting to sell their homes. And that's no problem. You know, there's a lot of property there. I can see people selling their homes, and for the development, that's not a problem. It's the density that worries me. And of course, the traffic has been mentioned a lot of times. And I'd like to see a good traffic study. I know in the past when they've done traffic studies, they've had the wires across the street that counts the cars. I didn't see that this time on the study that was mentioned. And I read in the paper, it's been last year, early last year, in the Standard Examiner, that they had a study that they counted 22,000 cars a day going along 2nd Street. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't have it with me, but I read that in the paper. Anyway, I'm not opposed to development. I'd like to see that developed in the old houses that are been mentioned that are having problems. It's just the density is the big problem for me. I think it'll be more traffic. There's a lot of apartments going up in the neighborhood at 5 Points and on 2nd Street just above Washington, Harrisville Road. by Harmon's, or well, I guess it's not Harmon's anymore. It's not Wainsgard's
We know
anymore.
what you mean.
I guess it was Ridley's, and it's not Ridley's anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's apartments on 7th Street that are going up. So I just prefer single dwelling homes. I hope that would be the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi, I'm Dustin Peterson. I'm a local real estate broker. And I always get asked, hey, Dustin, how's the market doing? And I usually respond to everyone, well, how's the income in the area doing? We're hearing today about the city's expansion through BDO, Versinius, Hill Air Force Base. Currently, inventory, and this is all of Weber County. Weber County's inventory is down 16%. So if the inventory is down, what is happening to prices? Prices are last year increased 12.9% in the price of homes. So with prices up, in the Fort Bingham area, in the last year, there's been only 22 homes that have been available to purchase. Right now, there's only one home that's currently active to purchase in Fort Bingham. So if you want to buy a home and you're moving here, good luck. There's nothing to buy. The average home price in Fort Bingham right now, the lowest priced home that sold was $249. The highest price was $310. And so the home that is for sale, if anybody's interested, is $278. Give me a call. A little bit aside, I'll help you buy a home. Anyway, there's the affordable housing is not there. So then I did I looked from North Street all the way to 7th Street and did a study there. There was 133 homes that sold in that area, of which currently there's only 2 homes for sale. So there's not enough homes to support the area. So from a business owner standpoint, if you're trying to bring people into the area, they have no place to live. So having single family attached homes that are nicely built, the first thing I looked at when I was doing when I worked in aerospace and I would bring people in was where are they going to live? So you're going to push them to Roy, you're going to push them outside of Ogden. Ogden has a terrible walk score. It's getting better. If you look at walk score, how far from your work or where you live to where you work to where you eat, has a bad walk score. If you can increase the walk score with whatever you do on 5 points, something's going to happen there. Something has to happen there because there's no more grocery going to be there anymore. So whatever the walk score is, if you can increase that, you can make it better for the residents, clean up the blight, and I think you'll bring in new businesses as well as have a place for people to live. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Suzanne Elmer. I have the property for 197 West 2nd Street.
You're gonna move the mic down just a little bit. Thanks.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I know we've all talked about the density, we've all talked about the traffic, and I don't think those are really the issue here. The real issue is 90% of these homes are old, and they're not safe for humans. They're really not. Like they've already stated, we're having to pay relatives to stay there. My mother's 80-some years old. She can't take care of an acre of ground. She can't even take care of a front yard. She can't even drive. We really need some people to be compassionate about what their neighbors need. This is an issue of public safety. These places are being inhabited by animals and by homeless. And we're all being robbed because we don't want to let the property to be developed to where we can have more neighbors to watch our backs. It's not traffic we're worried about. We need this help to watch our backs. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, uh-oh, be careful, buddy. You okay?
I'm telling you, if we would move that table.
Mark, I know that you said that side.
Yep.
We can move the table over though.
Okay. Ralph Price, 636 6th Street. I have total empathy for what these people are saying and everything, but I have to speak on one thing that I hear them saying in a negative connotation that it's being inhabited by homeless and stuff now. Myself, I have Agape Outreach. And one of the things we do is we work with people that have diverse situations, people coming out of prisons, jails, people coming out of drugs and alcohol. I want you to know that these people that you consider to be homeless and stuff like this are human beings that have diverse situations. I want you to look at them as people, not as just a negative entity. And so I just would like to just speak on that, I've heard you be able to say time after time again that now we're having raccoons and we're having animals and we're having homeless. And that's all negative connotation. I would just like you to believe that, that we are our brother's keepers, that we are, these people deserve a chance to be able to have their lives back. I and other people like me, we work tirelessly to be able to go ahead and have that. By the way, I apologize to Mark and to City Council. I got to say a word to you. I got irate last week because I heard saying, thank you, Mark, for coming and explaining that to me. But I have a compassion for people with the diverse situations and the people that are homeless. I hope you do, and you'll see that all they're trying to do is try to go out and see it in that inclement weather that's out there. And it's hard. I bundle up just to come to meetings. But I want you to know that those are human beings that you're talking about. So when you look at them and the situation that they have, look with compassion in your heart. Try to be able to have some understanding that they're trying to get by. Okay, that's all I have to say. Oh, I do want to say, though, too, that I am all for all the older houses and stuff. Was raised in Layton. One of the things we did on West Gentile is we preserved our homes and our older homes, and it's a pride right now in Davis County that we do take in that we have that up in the Salt Lake City, and you have up in the Avenues area and stuff. They've taken and they've brought those homes to a certain level and everything. They take pride in what they look like. Federal Heights area and stuff like that too. That's one thing that can be discerned down here. The density level and everything down on Second. I was hit by 2 cars down that way. So getting people to go into DO to get jobs. So it is a priority that needs to be done by traffic, anything down there. The density level could be brought down a little bit, but you do need to have more of housing and stuff like this and develop that. But let's watch our density level. But also let's watch our comments about people who's less fortunate than ourselves.
Thank you, Al.
Hello, this is Bob Gibney, 152 West 2nd. Some of you know my history, and some of you, it's just your chance to get rid of me. I'm one of the ones to sell the property down there. The area has moved as Aspen built. You know, the animals and everything, they followed down to the vacant areas. The traffic down there isn't that bad, except they want to know what it's like. They should have been a 9-year-old riding on your grandfather's horse-drawn hay wagon, trying to get onto DDO, and it's not bales of hay. That's when they pitched it on with pitchforks. The trouble was the traffic could always be between 6 and 8, and then 2:30 to 4:30. And this is a steady outflow. The inflow really isn't that bad, but the people get shut off by the trains on 12th Street, they come over to us. The people that get shut off on the trains on 2nd, they cut through Downs Drive over to 12th. It's a, you know, that's where the majority really comes up. But then, like they say, you've got a turning lane or a parking strip and a 1 lane. Then you got the stupid island. Then you've got on the other side a lane and the parking strip. On the coming out, egressing out of there, that's when the people get frustrated and everything else, and that's when they try coming into parking. One remedy is to cut it down a little bit, make it safer, would be take the islands out. Plus, to save the city water, because they're leaking over there. Yeah, no matter how many times they go over and try and fix them, but, you know. But the traffic is the only problem really coming out. And beings, my family has been there since the 1800s. There's always been a wreck down there. Once a week, twice a day, there always has been. Growing up, I watched them when Welkers had their barn right there. The horse would get out, everybody would go to avoid it, they'd hit. It's always been a problem there. They did have that at 50 miles an hour, and I yelled at UDOT, and Vic Saunders did a study on it, and why should it be 45 coming down 89 and 45 from 2nd Street over and have a mile worth of 50 mile an hour? So it's dropped down to 45. The exit through there and everything, we do need it. We need housing, you know it as well as I do, or else you wouldn't be looking at the old Rite Aid and the old Kentucky Fried Chicken. You know, it's there, we all know it. It's needed.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time and efforts in all this, because you guys have a lot to put up with.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to talk. I lost my voice, but my name is Wayne Willie. I live at 133 West 2nd Street. I've lived there 34 years. I keep hearing them talking about traffic, and I'm here to tell you, we're talking about single-family homes. We're talking about putting, I don't know how many units they want to put in. At one point, I heard they wanted to put 190 in. So where they're getting 190 in them acres, I don't know. I also heard the developer say something about this plan. So what's the second plan? What's the third plan? You're going to put more and more houses in this area. The biggest problem isn't taking out the islands. The problem is what's going on in BDO. You put all these houses in. How many buildings are being put in BDO right now? How many cars are going to be going through 2nd Street? We had an old neighbor, their car got hit when she was trying to pull in her house. Brand new car, guy just ran right into her. I've been hit, I don't know how many times, well, not hit, almost hit, trying to pull into my driveway. I have trailers, I've got an acre of land. I have the right to use that land. We keep doing all this construction. I cannot get my trailers in my property. All the people that want the expansions are all the ones selling. The ones that say, I don't want nothing to do with Ogden anymore. The ones that want to keep it and keep it low amount of houses are the ones that want to live there. We don't have the money to go out and sell our house and go buy new. They're talking about what the prices of houses are right now. My house is higher right now than it's ever been. But I can't sell my house, turn around and go buy an acre of land and put the same size house on it anywhere, because it's going to cost more money than what I can get out of mine. Keep the housing low, because BDO is going to get huge with lots of traffic. That's my concern. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
That was a hard climb.
Hello, my name is Jesus Montes, or Jesse Montes. I live on 142 Pingree, east of that intersection of Wall and 2nd. I'm from New Mexico originally. I've been here about 10 years. And my concern when I got this message in the mail was the traffic. I'm definitely not in any way, how can I say the word, against development, but I am against multiple home development or Looking in the slides here, I live on that Pingree Street, which is sort of has a little NASCAR turn drive there. I don't know if you guys have ever been in that area, but it goes up to some of the multi-homes at the very north end of my home. And we, as neighbors and people in the community, have put in a lot of complaints to try to get some zoning or some traffic counts in that area. And it doesn't happen. The last time that somebody said that they did a count like that, the counter unplugged and they never came back out. But the traffic through there is tremendous. For the people that live in that area, I now go to the technical school down the road there, and I travel every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. And even for me to make a right turn onto 2nd Street from Pingree is pretty delayed at times in the morning, a little bit before 8 o'clock, 7:30. So I can understand what the traffic is going to increase in that area. But I think as the development sounds good. I wish there would have been some pictures because I think all of us are more into the aesthetic part of it, so we could see what kind of that would be in there. Because I mean, I want my home to go up in value as well, and I want some of these people who can't afford to keep those homes and up to date in those areas. I could understand that it's very difficult for them as well. But I think as for the council and you guys, a lot of people have said here, it's a tough job, and the city has a lot of things. But I think sometimes the word of the citizens goes unheard. And then when we start putting our kids in danger, that's where we have the issues at. So for somebody to say that there's been traffic counts on it, I don't know. I would love to see how many big accidents have really happened at that accident, because my first week that I lived at my home, I saw a car get hit in that intersection and it flipped completely over and was a couple of feet from that next house that where a truck hit it. So just I think if it happens again, I think we need more metrics, some numbers to really give a clear view and more transparency for the people that are here. And I wouldn't have come here unless I got this paper. So thank you. I appreciate your time. Okay.
Okay, this is a last chance. If anybody has anything to say, it's hard to tell. People are sort of leaning forward. There's another one. Last call.
Hello. I'm Terry Hicks. We built our house 2002 on Lynn School Lane, which is Lynne. All of us are pretty much the same age. I know we live in a sample neighborhood, which we did not know when we first built our home. Ogden City has done the beautification with the trees down our street, which we love. We have a lot of accidents, whether anybody knows this or not, constantly at the intersection of 2nd and Wall, and that has always been a problem. The other thing is when they've done construction on Wall and they diverted the traffic through our neighborhood, a lot of people didn't know our neighborhood existed, and we started getting a lot of break-ins on vehicles and in the houses. And as far as the vehicles go, the neighbors are pretty good. We tell each other, but not everybody calls the police about it. But I can see maybe single homes, but not apartments. We need to figure out what to do about all the accidents and getting in and out of, whether it's on the side street of Wall or 2nd and Wall. And if you have a bunch of apartments, how are they going to get on the road? They can't get on the road now. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So I wish that more people would come and talk to the neighbors in our neighborhood that have lived there. And to hear that somebody has been around talking, we're asking each other, has anybody talked to you guys? No. I don't know who they're talking to. But the traffic and the crime is a big concern for us. Okay.
Thank
That's
you.
it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for all that public input.
Chair,
Yes.
I would in light of our missing 2 council members, I would like to thank the people who have come to voice their opinion on both sides of the issue. But I would like to make a motion that we table this to next week, when we hopefully will have a full quorum or full council for resolution. And that's what I would
Thank you.
propose.
Any second?
Are you talking both of them or just that?
On both of these issues, yeah, both these items.
I'll second those.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember White to table this, the 2 issues, let's say 6.3 and 6.4, to next week, which would be February 25th. Was that what it was when I looked last? I believe so.
Sounds like about right.
Yep.
Would that be a voice vote or?
Voice vote.
That's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that passes. So like Councilmember Heyer said, we really appreciate all of your input, and we will be putting it back on the agenda for next week when the other council members are hopefully present, so that we can all make a decision together. Thank you again.
Just to
Oh,
I
please.
mean, just a little bit to clarify, it takes 4 votes to approve, or, I mean, to make anything move forward, and with 5 of us here, it's a little dicey, yeah, so it would be.
Chair, can I ask Greg to come up? The developer said he was going to put 10 units on an acre, and I would like to know how many, or approximately how many that would be. Do you want to look in your crystal ball?
Hypothetically, if there was 10 units per acre,
Well, if you have 4.72 acres, and you do 10 units an acre, that you're talking about 45 units an acre. I mean,
45
Total.
units,
Yeah,
yeah.
total.
The problem with that is you can just do that, but all of a sudden, a lot of it depends on what's your road configuration, a lot of different things of, can you really reach that?
Yeah.
But that's,
optimal then.
that
45 would be
yeah,
max.
yeah.
Okay. I'd like to also make a suggestion, maybe for next week. There has been a lot of talk about traffics and accidents on the corner of 2nd and Wall. Mark, would it be possible to maybe check with the police and see if within maybe a year's time or 2 years' time, how many accidents and has happened in that area?
Yes, we can have that for next week.
Okay.
and to me, it seems a little bit, I mean, I'm not trying to discount that this would not add additional traffic, but it seems like the traffic needs to be dealt with regardless of
Oh,
what
yeah.
happens. I mean, we've heard this several times over the last year, that this area's really got some challenges with traffic.
Exactly. There were the same concerns last year when
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
I'm sure that's we need to deal with that, but
Yeah.
if we had an idea of what
Yeah.
the magnitude of that situation would be.
Sure. Councilmember White?
And tell me, so 44 is optimal with the R3 zone, right? Or the 10, what would R1 zone be?
If,
I mean, as it's zoned now.
so if it was done as a standard subdivision, generally you would be able to get 23 lots out of it, discounting for the roads. So if you just took straight acreage, you say, okay, you can get 34 units. If it's just a straight single-family subdivision. But generally, you take 25% of the land area for roads, so that would give you 23 lots possibly under the R1 zone.
Okay.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay.
Okay. Move on to the next item. So we have the proposed rezone at 206 13th Street, and we are presenting Greg Montgomery.
I have a family day. I'm
I
going.
know. I'll see you later.
So I hope you all make it on the next.
I hope we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
Let's roll the dice.
I'm gonna wait for that text.
I'll text you.
Thank you. I'll do this too.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just doing a little change out up here as well, Greg. Nothing personal. He has to leave at 8 regardless.
We're losing him.
Yeah. They're dropping like flies
Oh,
here
dear.
and out there.
You better hurry.
There's just Marcia all over
I
there.
know. I'm like,
Okay.
I think I showered this morning, but
Yeah.
Come on over, Marcia.
Well, then do they Mark over there all by himself? I don't know.
That'd be
Okay, we can do this, people.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
this
Greg.
is a petition that has been filed with the city, and the Planning Commission has reviewed this regarding rezoning the property at 206 13th Street from its present R16 zoning to R3. R3 is a popular theme tonight.
Sorry, there you go.
Oh, just wait a
waiting
second.
for the door to close.
Okay.
It's a little distracting. I think they keep hitting the button that opens it back up.
Oh.
Sorry. Little intermission. Thank you, Greg.
Okay. So the property is one single lot, about 18,000 square feet. And a single-family home was on the property. It's vacant. Last time I looked, most of the siding has been taken off and empty now in anticipation of redevelopment of the property. Give you an idea of that area in the crosshatch. You can see it in relationship to the other zoning around it. So to the north is C2 commercial, also a little bit to the west, some commercial, and also multiple family R3. To the south, R3 zoning with fourplexes in those areas. Even to the east, the next door neighbor is what we call a group dwelling. There's 2 duplexes. And it was R2 at the time, and then it was downzoned as part of the R16, R2 downzonings that took place. So the property is surrounded by areas that are multiple family and have multiple family development in them. So as the Planning Commission looked at this, they first looked at those, again, the Mountain View Community Plan and the general factors of the general plan that talk about zoning reflecting the use. Is this area in transition? Does the zoning follow property lines, those general policies? And in all cases, yes, yes, yes. The prevailing character is multiple family. It has been transitioning in this area along Lincoln. Property to the east is non-conforming, so it is also multiple family, and the zoning is proposed to follow the property boundaries. They also looked at the Mountain View Community Plan, and again, this area is shown as having potential for multiple family in it, and so is also consistent with that. Those brown, that brown color is multiple family zoning, and so is also consistent with that item. Gives you an idea of the transitions that have been taking place in terms of the types of development going on, and the fact this is going the opposite of what we talked about earlier. This is not isolated neighborhood. This is getting more in character with how that area has developed along Lincoln Avenue. So the Planning Commission's recommendation to you is 6-0 to approve the rezoning to R3.
Any questions? It's easier with less people. Look at.
Well, hey, the work session was very informative. It seems like kind of a no-brainer. So thank you for the info.
No brains is mainly what I do.
Oh. We do want to invite the petitioner, Jonathan Oliver, if you'd like to make a statement.
My name is Jonathan Oliver. I appreciate you, Greg. Thank you. I'll keep it short. It's been a long night for everyone. As Commissioner Heyer said, the last meeting was informative, and we're just going with the general plan. We're not going against it, and just want to add a buffer of multifamily in the area and just add to and go in congruence with the general plan.
Are these going to be apartments or single or selling?
Single
units?
family townhomes.
Okay.
And for sale product.
For sale.
Okay. So they'll be condominiumized for.
Yep. Separate tax IDs. Yep. There'll be 7 on that site.
Great.
That's good.
Questions over there?
Nope, I'm fine over here.
Sorry, just gotta check it out. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we'd like to receive any input that the public might have. Again, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Is that on this item, Ralph?
Yeah, only on this item.
Okay.
It is on this item. Like that guy.
The last one was a little far-fetched.
Yeah, well, the comments came out, they said apology on the way. But I just would like to come out in favor of Ralph Price, 636 6th Street. I'd just like to come out in favor of this because one of the areas that we're talking about here is finally not on the east side, not in South Salt Lake, and some that is multicultural. And so it's something that affects our community as well as Hispanic community and others too. I'd like to see these nice townhomes and everything, to be able to be purchased townhomes, to encourage them and encourage children and encourage young people that are up at the college in this to invest in Ogden, to come on and to buy a townhome. And it's not up on the east side or in South Salt Lake. You know, it's right back down in Ogden. I'd like to see this passed and be in favor of it, because I think it's something that probably one of the first ones I see that is for the minority community of Ogden and everything, and a reasonable thing that we might be able to upgrade and be able to use it as an incentive for our people to go ahead and upgrade their lives, push on for it. I know that whole area over there, one of the things, the work we do in that area over there, it is a blighted type area, and to see somebody interested in coming and putting something like that, nice townhomes in there and upgrading it, something like this, just want to come out in favor of it.
Thank you
Okay?
so much.
Thanks.
See no other movement out there. Would anybody like to
Sure.
motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, Chair. I'd like to propose that we adopt ordinance 2020-6.
I second it.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Stevens to adopt proposed ordinance 2020-6. It's a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Chair Chaburka.
Aye. That passes. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. So now we'll have another report from Greg Montgomery around proposed rezone at 117 Doxey Street.
Chair, I'd kind of like to mention that
Oh,
it's
please.
really nice when developers come in and they want to do some redevelopment of the property and they don't want tax increment. That is great.
We appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver.
So this is another petition which has been filed with the city, and the planning commission is forwarding the recommendation on to you. This is the property at 117 Doxey Street, and the request is to rezone property from present C2 zoning to an R4. As you can see on this map, that yellow area is the property in question. It's right on the edge of commercial versus residential. It has its frontage on Doxey. It's a vacant lot. Has been vacant many, many years. When the state came in and did the widening on Wall Avenue, the homes that had been along Wall were taken down. Those properties have been left vacant. And the question that we had as we looked at this is, what is the best use of this property? The proposal is to rezone it so a home could be built on the property. It's 6,500 square feet and would allow a single-family home under the R4 zoning. Under the commercial zoning, single-family homes are not permitted. So that is why the request is to be able to develop a home on the property. It's too small, really, at 6,500 square feet to become commercial. And as you look at the property on Wall, its depth, even if added to this, is not really what you'd want for commercial development. So it's just kind of in that no man's land of what happens to this area. And residential is what Doxey is, what Doxey has been, and really what we see Doxey continuing to be. And so to rezone it to the R4, we feel is consistent with the area, the transition that's gone on, the new homes that have been built several years ago along Doxey, and actually Doxey was punched through. For many, many years, Doxey was a dead-end street, and that's why it just kind of languished there on the west side, because there was no way to get to the residential areas. With the development took place, the subdivision, the street connections, this has made it a much more viable area. And so as the planning commission looked at this, they felt that the Jefferson plan supports the rezoning, so single-family homes could be developed. The extension of Doxey, as I said, is another key factor. And so the commission is recommending 6-0 to, again, rezone this property from commercial to residential to allow the home to be built.
Any questions?
One of the questions that may come up is why R4? If the single-family home is being built, why rezone it R4? I think two important factors are when we look at transitioning zoning, so from high intensity to lower intensity. So Wall Avenue being a very heavy traffic street with the commercial zoning, R4 makes a good transition. And R4 allows from single family to multiple family, and it's all based on the lot size of what could happen. So it allows that mix to occur. And so because it's the lot size is 6,800 square feet, only a single family home could be built, much like the other single family homes which are zoned R4. If in the future there may be a accumulation of properties, it would still allow that transition as R4 to still go from the higher commercial to a transition zone to the single family, which is more towards Lincoln. So that's why we looked at the R4 option rather than rezoning the properties maybe to R1.
Just to be clear though, our noticing would allow us to make it an R1.
Yes, it would.
So we wouldn't be prohibited from doing that.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Greg? The petitioner is here, Manuel Vasquez, if you'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, I'll also keep it short. I'm Manuel Vasquez. I'm the petitioner. So, yeah, Greg pretty much summed it all up. So we're looking to put a single-family home on this property. We did look into possibilities as a C2, maybe putting some kind of business or something on there. But after looking into the business that we can put in, due to the size of it, it's really small. We can't really. It wouldn't comply with like the setbacks and everything. So there's really, like he said, it's no man's land. We can't do much. And after speaking with Joe Simpson and all that, the planner, we found that R4 is probably our best bet in putting a single family home. And that's why I want to do R4, and pretty much sums it up.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, pretty straight.
Thanks for your patience and waiting out.
Yeah, long night.
Thank you. Great, so we can receive public input on this item if anyone would like to. Does not look like it.
I still remain more comfortable with the R1, just in light of that's what the community plan is trying to encourage, is single family development in that area, as the second to the last slide showed. And I think if something were to happen in the future, that some properties being accumulated, they could then look at an appropriate rezone. But I think at this point, it's more consistent to make it an R1 single family zone rather than an R4 multifamily zone. And so I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2020-7, amending the approval to make the zone R1 single family rather than R4.
So we have a motion.
Fails for lack of a second.
If you find a second, it just to see how that one comes out.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question about.
Four of us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, would the R1 still work for the petitioner? We didn't really get a chance to ask him that.
In R6.
R6? Oh, just come all the way up here because they have to record it.
If I'm being honest, we haven't really looked into what we could do as an R1. So, I mean, we could probably check back in and, look at how it would go as an R1. R4 is what we were told, and based on the plans we want to do, it was.
We could get you an answer right now. Could he still do what he's proposing to do with an R1?
guess I just feel a little reluctant to have him on the spot make a decision about whether he can still do that or not.
The one thing I'm not
didn't ask
sure, I
that
can't
last
remember
week.
how wide the lot is. Because the R1 has wider setbacks on the side yards than the R4.
And that might be why the planner recommended the
And so I
R4.
don't know what the difference would be there.
It requires 66 feet and then a 8 and a 10, right?
Well, if it's R16, for example, it'd be 6 and 10
6 and 10.
and 60-foot width.
Okay.
If it's an R4, it's 5 and 8 on the side yards.
Okay, I'm on my motion to make R4 multifamily.
So you're just amending your original
I'll just
motion?
amend my original motion. It really isn't a
Just why you
huge.
do a do-over since you didn't have a
It
second.
isn't a huge deal either way to me, other than it seemed like it was more consistent with what the community plans called
No,
for.
I hear you.
So I certainly didn't want to cause any problem for the petitioner / developer. So
Yeah.
I just thought it was more consistent with what the
No,
community
I
asked
hear
for.
you. So are you amending your original?
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer and a second from Councilmember White to adopt proposed ordinance 2020-7, continuing with the R4 multifamily residential zone. It's a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Chair Chaburka?
Aye. That passes. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now we have time for public comment. I don't know if there's anybody left to say anything, but, oh, there is, of course. So please state your name for the record and stay under 3 minutes. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Hello, my name's Joanne Lawrence. I'm a resident of Ogden. And the last time I was here, I think, was when we were hearing about the rumor of the Marshall White Center closing. At that time, we were told that, what was to be done with the Marshall White Pool, that would be discussed during the December budgeting retreats. And I wondered if there is an update. I didn't hear anything about it in the economic development report, and that might not be the right place for it to happen. But I wonder if there is an update. We've got the current federal administration closing after-school programs. And so I think, again, another reason for our local community to shore up what we do with our after-school programs and our facilities here. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if we have an update or I haven't heard an update from December meetings about that.
Angel Castillo. I just wanted to expound a little bit on some of the things that we talked about in the previous comment. And I'm tickled to death that out of the 4 people that were pro high density, I don't know a single one of them. And it makes me feel good that we see new faces coming here saying what I've been saying for over a year and a half, that we don't have enough affordable housing, that we need to have more housing along transit lines and things like that. And I specifically wanted to talk about what needs to happen within planning as you move to budget. I have the utmost respect for Greg Montgomery. He's ridiculously wise and he reads all the new things. He's very in touch with what other cities are doing and how growth works. And he is not getting what he needs to do his job, essentially. And we're seeing it coming up in session, in work session, and here in the meetings that we have this outdated plan and they cannot update the plan. And so I specifically said, so what is it going to take? And there are a couple of options. You can find $500,000 to hire a consultant firm to update the plan for you, which will take approximately a year and a half. Or you could hire 3 planners and it'll take 2.5 years. And I am of the ilk that we really need to be proactive versus reactive. And I say we hire a consultant and hire 2 planners so that we are not left behind with where we need to be with growth. You know, the statistics are out there. Nobody's making this stuff up. You know, Wasatch 2050 will tell you this. You just had a realtor tell you that there's not enough housing inventory. You've had Weber Health Services tell you there is not enough affordable housing, because if you use a regular looking at what we have for Ogden as opposed to the Ogden Clearfield metro statistic, we need more housing, and we need more affordable housing, and we need not necessarily just affordable housing. We need to have housing for students, people aging in place, families starting out, and our workforce, our baristas that work at our coffee shops, our servers at restaurants, people who work at retail, Costco employees, and recent graduates who make $25,000 to $35,000 annually. That is the missing middle. We do not have missing middle, and we have many of our more affordable units that are occupied by people who should be in a different unit and leaving that lesser housing open. And we also have our affordable housing that is not inhabitable. I'm sure you've seen all those photos that Greg sent in packages of places that are sitting empty of mold, and we're doing nothing about that. So I strongly encourage you to really take a look when you go into budget to make sure that we are not going to continue to operate under a plan that hasn't been updated in over 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Ralph Price, 636 6th Street. Sorry, I have health issues that are going on. I have to keep going out because of heart and kidneys and stuff like this, and so I was back in. One of the things I wanted to come today, and especially interested, is it's Black History Month. And one of the things that I just want you guys to know is, as I come to these work sessions, I come to the county, I come to the city council, so I can stay informed and pass on what is going on. One of the things within the minority community that I want you to know about is that there's a deep frustration with that it's Black History Month and everything. Marshall White Center, I'll just say that for instance. He was a first officer of color that was killed in the line of duty. I remember I'm 65, going on 66. I remember as a kid coming over here in 68 and 69 and 70 to the Marshall White Center. What pride it was for us, the people of color, and everything to come over and learn about the history. We had the different classes that we could take there. Now, I was from Davis County, but we'd come over here to Weber County. My father was on the Sinclair station down here on 25th and Lincoln, and he was one of the originals with Porters and Waiters, and that was here. So I've had a history of being affiliated with Ogden. I just want to say that I'm kind of disappointed in that we have such a thing like the Marshall White Center, and such an institution that it's not just a community center. It's a statue. It means something. I was sitting back and I was sitting in church, and it was not just blacks, but it was Spanish, and it was white, and it was all. They had all been to the Marshall White Center growing up, and there was my age, 65, us grandpas, as well as young people, and that's too, that Marshall White Center meant something. And it was a sense of community here for Ogden, and it was one for the state of Utah. And I just want you to encourage you to actually do something about the Marshall White Center coming up here. It is a landmark. We got Annabelle Matson's that's passed on. We just had Joe McQueen and all the different ones that are passing on and everything of color. You know, there's Leonel Lopez and all these great people that were in the past and everything. But we know them from the Marshall White Center. And that's, please do something about creating that landmark again for Ogden and the minority community here. Another thing I want to just touch base on real quick is that here it is, Black History Month, And I just would like to invite you guys and encourage you guys to get out to the NAACP meeting that's coming up and participate in that and be well represented there. That's people of color, the Union Center down here, and we're going to have a NAACP meeting down there and a dinner. You guys need to come. All right?
Thank you, Ralph. Any other comments? Okay, great. Any comments from you, Mr. Johnson?
Thank you. I kind of had a flashback when I was on the planning commission many, many years ago with this group, this community that was here, because I think I was part of the vote on some of those subdivisions that went in that they weren't all that happy about then, but now seem to be happy with. So it's kind of interesting to see the evolution of how all that's began. The budget process for us starts probably before December, but we get intense in December and January, February. We keep working on it, and we don't finalize our budget probably till April. We don't bring the budget to the council till May, the first Tuesday in May. I don't think I can commit to anything or talk about anything yet because I don't even know what my revenue numbers are going to be. One of the big revenue months for us is December in sales tax because that's when a lot of people shop for Christmas. We don't get those numbers till the end of February. So we can't even start analyzing where we are financially. We are working to put together a Marshall White committee. We want to have input. I wrote your name down, and we're going to probably suggest you're one of those people on that list. But we're going to pull a committee together and start talking about ideas of what Marshall White can and should be. We are putting money in Marshall White currently, not in the pool, but we're just about completing, I think, the roof. The roof cost us about $450,000. We're putting a new playground area in, new shelter. I think they're supposed to start on that the next week or two. There's other things that we've been trying to do. There's no doubt in my mind that Marshall White building needs a facelift. And that is something we're working on trying to figure out how to do. And it's really more than just a rec center. It's more of a community center, and we get that. And so that is something we're working hard towards. We also recognize the need that the community has for probably a little bigger facility in a recreation center. And so we're trying to balance those. We're doing a lot of work to try and figure that out. It's probably going to eventually end up, if the council sees it this way, as maybe going to the people this November for a vote to see if they're willing to pay a little extra property tax so that we can do those buildings and put that together. We've got a long ways to go before we get there, but we're working to try and get there. We're listening. We understand. We hear what you're saying. It seems like it should be simple, but it isn't actually as simple as it seems. There's some complication in trying to make sure we're putting the right thing in the right place, and we have the right amenities there. Marshall White will never close, even if we build a rec center somewhere else. The Marshall White building is an institution here. Mayor Caldwell and I are committed to that. I'm pretty sure that 7 members of the city council are committed to that. So we're making progress. We're not making it very fast, and especially it's frustrated a lot of people. We haven't made it faster, but it is something we're working on, and we're hoping to maybe come with some resolve here in the next couple of months. That's my best I can answer today. But I have written your name down on the good list.
Thank you. Any comments from council members?
Yes, Chair, I kept thinking, as I listened to the good people in the Lynn community talk about the traffic that they were experiencing on 2nd Street, and I realized this development really isn't going to make too much of an impact on, you know, in a percentage way on the amount of cars that go up and down that street, but the fact of it is that that's a busy road. We have on our master plan, I believe it's a master planned item, but at least it's been talked about to continue North Street down through over the tracks into 400 North. It lines up perfectly in through DDO or BDO, and it might be something that we look to move that up on our schedule to get that done. As I look from the BDO side, there's a lot of vacant ground. It's easy to do when there's vacant ground. It's not so easy to do when there's not. But we ought to look at that. Normally, I think our method would be to wait for it to develop, but I don't think we can afford to wait. I think it's something we ought to look at to get going quicker than maybe when it naturally would on its own. That's all I have to say.
Oh, excuse me. No. Oh, excuse me. We'll talk to you after the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment that, yes, the NAACP meeting luncheon is featuring Johnny, the Heisman Trophy winner, Rogers from Nebraska. So just in case you all want to come meet a Heisman Trophy winner, you can. Did I mention he's from Nebraska?
I think you did. I believe that's February 27th.
Yeah. Yep.
That's interesting. Yes.
I think he played for BYU.
No, wrong guy.
Do you have any comments, Councilmember Stevens?
I'd just like to piggyback on what Mark said. You know, there's a lot of things that we'd like to do, and we have a whole laundry list of things that need to be addressed and taken care of. One of the ones that we heard this evening was the traffic conditions on 2nd Street. The important thing is to visualize that the reason it takes maybe longer on some of these projects is that we want to do it right, and we need to do it so it benefits the citizens of Ogden. And I think that's the key issue that we're looking at. And so, you know, I know it's an inconvenience to maybe not have a pool there, but if we can do the improvements and look at Marshall White's and do a facelift from there, then it'll be a better structure for us. It'll be a better program for us. And all the citizens will be able to enjoy those programs that are there. But it's going to take some time and effort. And it'll take a method of selling our programs so that the people understand what is at risk here and what could be benefit for the citizens. So anything of value is going to take a little time to do it.
Thank you. Well, thanks everybody for your participation, and have a good night. Are we ready to?
Motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
See ya.
Aye. There we go. Adjourn. I remember.